Okay, what's up? This is my daily diary video. I wanted to do this outside, but suddenly the sky decided to open up and explode and spit all over the world. And I didn't feel like going outside in the rain. So I'm shooting here in my apartment. I'm using the Panasonic GH5 because it happened to be on the tripod in this room. I'm using the TT Artisan 17mm f1.4. I'm actually shooting at f1.4, so I might be a little soft and floating in and out of focus a little bit, which I kind of like. Seems real to me, or I like the effect of it. Um, and so that's the tech stuff. I was going to shoot this with my anamorphic 35mm Sirui anamorphic on my S5 outside, but I'll do that tomorrow. This is what was on my mind today and what I've been thinking a lot about. You know, I've been testing my anamorphic shooting for the past 6 weeks, pretty much. Like I've been using all my anamorphic lenses. I've been testing different shots. I've been, like kind of enacting different scenes for my film, even though they're not done and they're not set in stone or anything like that, because I'm actually still working on the script. But I've been running around, working as hard as I can to try to figure out, first of all, if I want to shoot everything anamorphic, which I'm pretty much there. I've been testing the matching these lenses because I have a Sirui 24, 35, and a 75mm. All of them full frame, but APS-C, L mount, 1.33 squeeze factor for all of them, all manual. They match up beautifully. I mentioned in my last video that I might wind up getting another GH5 instead of having three S5s and using Sirui Micro Four Thirds anamorphic lenses, which I don't know if they're the same. And then I thought, oh my God, so if I do that, I got to figure out how to test that. And so maybe I need to buy an anamorphic lens now for my Micro Four Thirds because I don't have a lot of lenses for my Micro Four Thirds, this camera, the GH5, because I hardly use it. It's really just a backup for my S5. And, I use it a lot for YouTube. But for real work, I'm using my Panasonic S5, and I have the original. And I use it because I love the image quality because it's my camera. That's what I have, I don't have an S5 II. I don't have a 2X. I don't have the S1 Mark II. I don't have an FX3, an A7S3, an R5C. I don't have any of that. I don't have a Blackmagic 6K Pro, 6K full frame. I have a Panasonic S5 original, the first one, the OG. And I love it. And I make no apologies for it. And I don't feel like I have something less than anything else. So here's what I realized though. I'm like, all right, if I'm going to do this and if I'm going to incorporate the GH5 into my shooting for this film, because I want to shoot with three cameras at the same time, probably for 60% of the shots of this film, I'm going to have to start testing these anamorphic lenses on Micro Four Thirds to see if they're different, because, it's a smaller sensor, so that means the aperture is different. That means they render kind of differently, I think. I don't even know, And really, that would be the only difference because I'm assuming the image quality, it's the same glass, it's the same company. The cameras are both Panasonic Color Science, they're both V-Log, even though one is V-Log L, but that, I don't really see a difference, to be honest with you. I know people can mathematically see the difference, or I know a lot of people have, spoken about the differences. V-Log L is no good. And I'm like, fuck out of here with that. V-Log L is really good. Just like V-Log is great, and they match well. And I don't have, in applied real work, I don't see the problems that a lot of people talk about. And I know that, I think it is responsible if you're doing YouTube videos to really dive into the deep weeds of the specifications and the technicalities of the cameras and the lenses, and to let people know what they can or can't do in the most extreme of situations. But if you're working on a real project, you're just trying to get the image that you're seeing in your head. And that's it. You have the camera, you have the lenses that you're using, and you're going to do the best you can. And if you know what you're doing, and if you're capable with a camera, and if you really understand your settings and composition and white balance and all that kind of stuff, depth of field, you're going to get great image quality with any camera. And people say that all the time, and I say that all the time, but it is true. And so that's what the video is about today. The video is about stop testing stuff. Stop it. You don't need to test everything. You don't need to have equipment that can handle any possible shooting scenario ever in the history of shooting or in the possibilities of the future of shooting. You don't need all that. You just need a capable camera and some good lenses. You do need to figure out what focal lengths are you about, like what resonates with you in terms of like for example, me, I like 28 millimeters and 50 millimeters. That's what I love. Sometimes I'll shoot with a longer lens, like a 85 equivalent, but I'm not like birding or doing sports or anything like that. So I don't care about a 70 to 200. I'm not doing weddings. I don't have to do that. 28 to 50 for me. I'm more of narrative documentary filmmaker. That's it. I love 28 millimeters. Maybe that's because I came from shooting with a phone, which was 27 millimeters, just locked into my LG V40. So my 28 millimeter lenses are perfect for me. But I have the 20 to 60 kit lens, which it's my only autofocus lens because I never use autofocus. But there were a couple of moments in a short film that I shot where I needed something wider than 28 millimeters. So I got the 20 to 60 kit lens because it was so cheap. I actually had the Sigma 28 to 70, which is a great lens. It's beautiful. But I was like, it's redundant for me. Like I never use it. I don't use autofocus. I just felt like I needed at least one decent zoom lens, because I don't have any zoom lenses. And I wound up selling the 28 to 70 to get the 20 to 60 kit lens. Like nobody does that, But I find that, so even though the Sigma has a straight 2.8 aperture, right, across the entire focal range, the 20 to 60 kit lens is 3.5 to 5.6. It doesn't bother me because to me it's a 3.5 lens, so it's faster than 4.0. And for 20 millimeters, that's all I need it for. And I could use it at 24 if I want to go a little bit wider than what I have. But because, my anamorphic 24 millimeter, which is 1.33 squeeze factor, is actually a 27 millimeter equivalent because it's an APS-C lens. So it's 24, APS-C, make it 36, divide by 1.33, make it 27. So anyway, my whole point is stop testing stuff. You're testing every camera, you're testing every lens, unless you're a YouTuber doing that. And that's your job. And that's a great job. And that's fun to be able to use all the equipment and all the tech stuff. It's like you're an entertainment version of an AV person at a school or an organization or something like that. Like you get to touch all this amazing technology and you're like a mad scientist. You get to delve into all the possibilities of what it can do. You can push it as far as it can go, up and down, highlights to shadows. You can tell us what it can do. That's awesome. But if you're somebody telling stories, like if you're a narrative, documentary filmmaker, or something like that, any of those things, even if you're doing weddings or whatever, stop testing. Just learn what you need, get something and work, do the work, write a script, go work on a film, but stop testing everything. It's just really a way for you to distract yourself from doing real work. You don't need to test everything. You don't need all this information. This is useless information. How many stops of dynamic range, how many stops of IBIS, you don't need all of that. It doesn't really make a difference. It's got nothing to do with what you're going to do to tell your story. Absolutely nothing to do with that. So, for me, I thought, oh my God, the aperture is going to be different. How much blurry background can I get? And it's like I hardly even use blurry background. I use it for very specific things. And guess what? I'm shooting right now with a micro four thirds camera. I'm using the 17 millimeter, right? But I have it set to the crop mode on the GH5. So it's actually like a 40 millimeter or something. I don't know. It's maybe not 40, but it's 35 because it's micro four thirds. So yeah, it's probably somewhere between 40 and 45 because I'm using, I don't know how much it crops in when I use that mode on this camera, but I got plenty of blurry background. And even at 17 millimeters, if I'm this close to the lens, because that's how close I am, I can touch it. Look how blurry my finger is. Come on. I can get blurry background. Look behind me. Look at everything behind me. I mean, it's kind of dark, so it's hard to tell. But you can get blurry background. You can get plenty of bokeh. And you know what? I haven't used it yet, but I'm assuming with anamorphic lenses on micro four thirds, I mean, there have been feature films shot on a micro four thirds sensor with anamorphic lenses. There have been documentaries shot that way. How many people have shot black magic back in the day using anamorphic lenses? Plenty. You know, their APS-C, you know, Super 35 is not full frame. It's not the same size. It's more like an APS-C camera. Super 35 is like the size of an APS-C. I mean, every major film ever made, including the ones shot with anamorphic, were shot with those cameras. Did you not like the way they looked? Did you think, oh my God, this would have been such a great film if it had better bokeh, if there was just a touch more, you know, blurry background? I actually got a comment the other day that somebody was watching some show that they loved so much on Netflix. I forget the name of it, but they were mad because every shot was a blurry background and they were bored. They were like too much blurry background. I shoot at f8 most of the time when I'm out and about because I like the way the depth of field looks. Like I like a natural kind of, you know, roll off towards, you know, the depth of field, like the foreground, the background, and how it moves behind me. So I like that. You know, it is aesthetically pleasing, but to just obliterate everything, I just think, why are you doing that? Like, do you think about composition? Are you thinking about what's in the frame? You know? Have you watched some of the greatest films ever made? Like, you should watch Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is considered one of the greatest films ever made. And there is not a moment of blurry background in that entire film. You can see everything. And the beautiful thing is that what's being done is that there are things going on behind the subject that are relevant to the story. Like you could see things going on through windows behind the subject or in the background on the street or something like that. Like every inch of that frame is being used clearly. And you can see the depth of field because there's natural depth of field. Like here's a subject and then there's stuff going on behind the subject. You know, the windows are behind the person or there's stuff in front of him or her or whatever. Like that's real depth of field. You don't create depth of field with your aperture. You create the blurriness of it. You create where you want to focus. But you don't create the depth of field. You're creating depth of field with designing the frame, with your composition. That's true depth of field. So anyway, what I'm saying is stop testing this gear. Stop testing all these microphones. You don't need to do that. Stop buying 19 cameras. Stop thinking that, you know, you're going to finally hit upon something that's going to suddenly make you feel creative and do the work that you've been dying to do, because it's not going to happen. But I guarantee you, if you just sit down and buy yourself a Sony a6400 or a Panasonic GH7 or a GH5 or an S5 II, or go get a Sony FX30 or an FX3 or an a6700, or go buy a Nikon or get a Canon R5C or get a Canon M50, get a Canon R50, like whatever. You will have something really capable. Now, think about things like, you know, the body of the camera, you know, the build quality. Like, are you going to be out and about? Are you going to really be using this thing day in and day out where you need it to be kind of like a beast where it's not going to break down? Then buy a camera that has good build quality. Buy lenses that can withstand the kind of work that you're going to be doing. Or if it's just going to be sitting on a tripod and you're going to be in a studio like this, just if you're just doing a podcast, you know, a visual podcast, or if you're just going to be doing interviews or whatever, then maybe you can go with like a ZV-E1 or a Panasonic S9, something with, you know, like really light and kind of plasticky and something you don't have to lug around, and something with a good flip screen, and something that is not going to have to withstand being thrown all over the place, placed down on the ground on a beach or in a field or on a building, or, you know, like you don't have to think so much about the build quality. So think about, that's the most important thing to me, because the rest of it, you know, sensor size, it matters nothing. Once you have micro four thirds, APS-C or full frame, or, you know, whatever, you know, like once you get whatever you choose, you're going to get used to it. If you use a micro four thirds, you're going to know that a 17 millimeter is a 35 millimeter equivalent. If you have full frame, you know that 35 is 35. If you have APS-C, you're going to know that 17 is actually 25-ish. I mean, you're just going to know how it works. It's 1.5 times crop APS-C, or 1.6 times crop if it's Canon, I believe. You know, I think Sony is 1.5. So, you know, like the sensor size doesn't matter. should you think about, how much light is going to get on the sensor, like in low light capability? You know what? So many people say that the Panasonic GH5 struggles in low light. Like in my opinion, that's total bullshit. Like I have done so many projects that were low light, and actually all my YouTube videos are low light. Right now, this is low light. This is low light. Now, obviously, I'm controlling the lights, but you're not going to see crazy noise in the dark places of this video because the ISO capabilities on this GH5 are incredible. I could push this ISO up to 3200, almost 4000, which is the dual native ISO in my S5. So in the S5, 640 and 4000 are pretty much the same quality, which is totally cool. And I use it all the time. And I only use those two ISO settings in the S5. But with this camera, I can move it up incrementally and it's not a problem. It looks beautiful. The image quality in this camera is amazing. So maybe you think about that. I mean, yeah, if you're shooting in the extreme darkness, if you have some kind of gig where you're just shooting candlelight in complete darkness, then get a full frame camera. But I'm telling you, it's not going to make that much of a difference. To me, the only big difference is image quality, price, and if you have to hook up with other people, if you're on a set, then you want to get something that allows you a little bit more professional cinema type camera. But, how many watching YouTube videos are really doing that and don't already know that? Like somebody who's in that position, they don't need that explained to them. If you're a DP, if you're a camera operator professionally, you don't need anybody in a YouTube video to tell you, oh, you better think about your connections, your time code, stuff like that. You better get a full-size HDMI for your external monitor. Like, nobody's going to have to tell you that. You already know that. You're way, way in that place already. I'm speaking to people who are testing everything and they're not professional. And to them, it's still like, oh, it's got full-size HDMI. You don't even know what that means. You just know like a micro HDMI might break. But guess what? There are thousands of people using cameras with micro or mini HDMIs where it hasn't broken. There are ways to deal with it. Like, be careful. Yeah, if you're running around going crazy, you might snap it off. But if you're just in a studio recording like this, it doesn't matter if it's full-size HDMI or otherwise. It's not going to matter because you're just putting it in once and just leave it there. So stop testing stuff, because I have an idea that you're testing stuff because you're stopping yourself from working. You're stopping yourself from committing and taking the step to finally do what you always say you want to do, but you never do. You ain't making no stories. You're not actually making films. You're not making documentaries. You're not doing anything that really matters. You're just testing shit. And you're like putting up videos, you're putting up videos of, Omaha, Nebraska at night, showing it for 3 seconds, or this is what this picture profile looks like, or whatever. And, those videos are cool. It's fine, But I think a lot of people are buying all the cameras, buying all the lenses, testing everything, getting every monitor ever known to humankind, buying all the microphones, all the wireless stuff, DJI, Hollyland, like all the stuff, testing everything, testing every single travel tripod. Like, come on. You really think these tripods are all that different? Like, you could pretty much rest assured if you're buying stuff in the same price range, they're pretty much the same. Fight me on that. Lighting, the same thing. You're buying all these lights. I'm using these tiny little lights to get the look that I get in these studios. And some people might hate it, some people might love it, but I get exactly what I want. And so, yeah, that's what the video is about today. Stop testing shit. Like, get to work. Do what you got to do. Write a script. Figure out. There's so much going on in the world right now. There's so much going on you could be writing about. Yesterday, I'm not going to talk about politics or who or what, but I am going to say this. I am going to go to the what. Yesterday, something was put out on social media saying that it is recommended that everyone in Tehran, the city of Tehran in Iran, is recommended to evacuate. Because there's a war going on, in case you don't know, between Israel and Iran right now. Like, there's so many wars going on in the world right now, it's crazy. When you think about what's happening in Ukraine, Sudan, Middle East, like, it's just nuts. What's happening in this country, crazy. So Tehran is a real city, a city of 10 million people. That's a lot. You're telling 10 million people to evacuate. That's like, what's going on? So right there, I used my gear to say something important, to raise a question. Like, do you have people work at the American embassy there? Do you like, is there an American embassy in Tehran? You know what? On PBS, you can get the PBS app for free. There's actually a documentary that I watched a long time ago. I don't know if it's still there, might still be there, but there's a documentary called Our Man from Tehran. And it's about a journalist who was living in Tehran. I would highly recommend watching it. It'll humanize that issue for you. It'll humanize that statement. It might change the way you think about people who live in the Middle East, whether you think of people from Israel or Iraq or Gaza or Iran, Tehran, whatever, Afghanistan. It'll humanize it for you. Just like, there's a movie called Turtles Can Fly. It will humanize for you. Paradise Now. These are films where you think people had the greatest equipment to make those films. First of all, they were made a while ago. So they didn't have the best equipment, but I would write those down and watch them because they're really good examples of movies that will rip your heart out of your chest in the most beautiful kinds of ways and also the most difficult kinds of ways, but made with really limited equipment that definitely would not stand with anything of today. Like the GH5 is probably way better than anything they used at that time. The GH7 is so much better. The S5 Mark II, 2X, the Nikon Z6, so much better than anything they used. The Canon R5C, the Blackmagic 6K Pro, APS-C. Like, I'm telling you, there's been, go watch Citizen Kane, like I said. That movie was made in the 40s or something like that. Like, I can't even remember. But, I mean, it's an old film. Cinema Paradiso, 1988, I think. The most beautiful film ever made, in my opinion. My favorite film. You might hate it. But Cinema Paradiso, it's so beautiful. I mean, it was made in 1980. That means it was made in like 1985. It probably took 2 or 3 years to make that film. What kind of equipment did they use? Technologically, they were probably shooting in 1080. It looks so gorgeous. So that's all I'm going to say today. Stop testing shit. And I feel like I berated you for the last 20 or 25 minutes, so I apologize. But please subscribe anyway. And please hit the like button if you like what I do. I appreciate that. And please consider joining my Patreon. I'm trying to build up my Patreon channel. It's really important to me. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that. So see you in a minute.